Alrighty. Where are we? There. Oh, let's see how this goes. I did manage to sleep for an hour in the middle of the day, so maybe it'll be fine. So, we left off here. Now we gotta go and do side quests and shit. It's the entire game. A woman, barefoot and in rags, stands defensively beside her tent. Despite her obvious poverty, she crosses her arms and holds her chin high. And what do you want? Another dangerous-looking one. Gods, is there no end to the predators in this place? Who are those people who ran off? She points her chin in the direction of the tunnel that leads out of the courtyard. They're called Delny and Vrun. They've been squeezing money out of me for months. Protection, they call it. Though obviously they only mean from them. I wish I could do more than simply cave to their demands, but as you see, I'm not exactly equipped to defend myself. It's all I can do to survive. Why not call the guards? Guards? You mean the Memobira's thugs? All they do is guard her interests and extort money from the gangs. They don't keep order, unless you can pay them. That's the way of the Bloom. Delny and Brun can do as they like as far as anyone else is concerned. Maybe I can help. Where did they go?
Making a note.
They crawl out of a hole somewhere deeper in the Bloom. Little Nihlesh, I think it's called. I'm not the sort to wish violence upon anyone, even people like them, but I hope something happens to stop them. I'm so naive, hoping for help. Still, no harm in pointing one potential thug to another. Will you tell me again about Delny and Vrun? Look at her closely. You notice immediately that her rags are actually made of high-quality fabric. It appears that they were once a fine green dress or gown, though it is now filthy and torn. She catches you looking and straightens her posture, seeming almost regal for a moment. Tell me about yourself. She gives a weak smile and curtsy. My name is Kian, the Bloom's most pitiable storyteller and self-styled innkeeper, though I admit that inn is far too fine a word for my little tent. Still, I can provide a meal, a bedroll, and at least a modicum of entertainment in the form of tales from my homeland. Before I came here, I was a noblewoman, believe it or not, a courtier from Sturthal. She gets a faraway look in her eyes. It feels like a previous life. I wonder if I'll ever find my way back. She shakes her head. I suspect not. Even if I could leave the Bloom and learn the direction of the Steadfast, the journey itself would be lethal. Where is Sturthal? Hundreds of kilometers from here, from what I have learned. As I understand it, the Bloom is located in what we in Sturthal call the Beyond, or actually Beyond the Beyond. That's a video game. As I had never heard of the Sega's Protectorate, or any of the places people talk about here. Sturthal is one of the largest cities in the Steadfast. It perches on the edge of an enormous rift in the ground called Royal Chasm. Some streets and buildings even protrude from the cliffsides, not unlike your Sega's cliffs as I understand it. It's a cultural jewel in an otherwise war-torn nation. How did you get here? You've seen the Katina, I assume. She gestures broadly at the massive broken vehicle behind her, being slowly subsumed by Bloom flesh. It's a kind of magical carriage, capable of traveling great distances by skipping over the space in between. Governor Marizek's priests determined that it came through Sturthal on a very precise schedule. It would appear at one of a few locations near Sturthal every 73 hours. Well, among the nobles it became a sort of adventure. We would dare one another to board the Katina or even hold parties at a location where it was scheduled to appear. It was exciting. I knew people who went on such journeys and came back with the most wonderful tales. They'd spend a couple of days meeting strange, fascinating people and visiting wild locales. Some, I am fairly certain, were not even in the Ninth World. I had to see for myself. Isaic always had the most romantic tales, clouds of crystal, Picala's shimmering fields, a dome of water in the desert. So about a year ago my friends and I threw a Katina Gala, in anticipation of its arrival. We packed and dressed for adventure, and when the carriage arrived, we boarded immediately. She clasps her hands in front of her and sighs. Sadly, that was the Katina's final journey. It crashed here, tunneling through part of the bloom. Most of the passengers were killed in the crash, and the rest in the months since. I'm all that's left of the voyage. I only wished for a tale half as romantic as his were. Sadly, that will never be. You're a very strong person to have survived for so long. I never considered myself strong. If I was truly strong, I might have kept the others alive too, she sighs. But thank you. Farewell. We have back here. A panel has fallen away from the side of the crashed Katina, exposing a compartment that is filled with machinery. Waves of energy radiate from it like heat haze. Examine the compartment. Most of the machinery in the compartment is smashed and unrecognizable, hanging by wires and strips of torn synth. In the open spaces between the machines, tiny vortices of light and energy occasionally spring into being, obliterate everything they happen to touch and then vanish again. You recognize the vortices as minuscule singularities in space-time. Their presence suggests that this Katina is powered by a trans-dimensional power source, which might be accessible from its aft section. As your eyes grow accustomed to the weird blurry haze, you notice a synth canister near the back of the compartment. It appears to be intact. If you stretch out your arm, you might be able to reach it, but if a vortex opens at the wrong time, you could be seriously hurt. Try to recover the canister. Oh yeah, quick fingers. Oh, you can't? 95%? Let's go. You reach into the compartment, fingers scrabbling at the smooth synth of the canister, trying to work it loose. A tiny vortex flares to life near your arm, but you snatch it away, and the vortex misses you by a few centimeters. With a final twist, you pull the canister free. The canister is icy cold to the touch. On one end, you find a release valve. If you opened it all the way, the coolant could be sprayed out, freezing anything it touches. Oh, it's just a cipher.
I'm going.
Nothing left there. Let's give that to Rin, just so she has something. We should use the Merecaster, but preferably I'd want to use the Merecaster after we've rested.
You want it done right.
Arsim Flint. Philethys. As you approach the Philethys, it gives an immense groan like some vast hulk breaking at sea. At last the groan becomes a word. Violator. A moment later, a blinding flash of light. It vanishes. Okay. The fat little man turns towards you, a wide smile already on his face. Indeed, his smile is unnaturally wide, reaching almost to his ears. You notice that his mouth contains 2 rows of white, well-manicured teeth. You catch me in the midst of an auction, sir, but no need to beg pardon. My clients will wait. He leans forward conspiratorially. I find that a short delay in the proceedings gets them talking amongst themselves and sparks their competitive natures. Good for prices. The smile gets even wider, if that's possible. Parsim Flint is my name, and the disbursement of so-called slaves to so-called owners for the betterment of both parties is my trade. What sort of slave are you looking for? She leans into you. These slaves are lucky, frankly. Consignments of the condemned have been known to go missing, usually when vivisectionists are flush with shins and require more advanced subjects than mere animals. This is practically humane. Why would I want a slave? Flint blinks into surprise, but his smile doesn't falter. To feed maws, of course. Unless you're planning to let them feed on you, but I wouldn't advise that. The little man shudders dramatically to emphasize his point. Fresh to the bloom, this one. He's not a licensed buyer, for sure then. Naturally, it helps to know what a maw wants before you go buying a slave. Not much point in buying a slave who isn't appetizing to the maw in question. Then he adds in a whisper. You'd be surprised how many people make that mistake. Flint gives you a knowing wink as if to emphasize the silliness of those people. Still, you never know. Maybe he would be interested in the boy. Rin tugs urgently at your garment and you glance down at her. You have to buy one. Buy all of them if you can. Flint notices the little girl for the first time. Ah, what a darling child you have there. And smart too. Are you looking forward to feeding your slaves to a maw, my dear? Not for a maw, Rin whispers, ignoring the little man. We have to set them free. Maybe you'd better explain how slavery works around here. Certainly. These slaves, Flint nods at the bedraggled men and women in the pit, are convicts of the foulest sort. They are the very dregs of Sega's cliffs and her surrounding communities. In order to pay their debt to society, many choose bloom slavery instead of prison or execution. These individuals are given to me and I sell them to the enterprising merchants who ply the bloom. A magnanimous arrangement to think that execution is the only option in some lands. Usually my clients come to me with specific requirements. Every maw has its own unique tastes, you see, and it won't open unless it gets precisely what it wants. So I offer an appropriate slave and they feed that slave to the maw. And everyone is happy. Flint grins, both rows of teeth shining whitely from inside his enormous mouth. How do you know what a maw wants? Ah, but that is the question. Sometimes you can puzzle it out on your own by watching the maw, observing the behavior of its tongues. He wrinkles his nose. A disgusting business altogether. Better to ask someone who's been here for a long time. They're barking mad, most of them, but they have an uncanny sense of the bloom's desires. Some of them claim to hear the voice of the bloom in their minds. Hearing the voice of the bloom. Flint whistles and waggles his finger at his head. That's when you know you're in trouble. These slaves volunteer to be eaten? Flint blinks, apparently taken aback. They're desperate people, and being fed to the bloom it's not a death sentence. Well, not always. Sometimes the bloom only devours certain aspects of a person, and they're entirely changed for the better. Or it takes a small trivial part of them, an eye, or half a stomach, or their ability to feel love, and spits them out into another world where they can start their lives anew. Flint beams at the thought of it all. Once a maw feeds on a slave, that slave is free. That's the law, mind you, unless the Murdans get hold of you. Flint crinkles his nose in disgust. They don't give a bird's turd about such things. So these slaves are all criminals. Of varying sorts, yes. The more vicious, the better, at least as far as my clients are concerned. Flint leans towards you again, his voice falling to a theatrical whisper. The bloom has a taste for the criminal element. Dangerous predatory sorts of people draw its attention, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. Rakogen told me that the maws have been closing. Yes, they are. Closing, disappearing, changing destinations, and behaving badly all around. Flint glances over at the guards, his smile faltering. That sort of thing is better to say in a low voice. preferably far away from the Memovirus lugs, or they might get the idea that you're blaming her for the problem. Dracogen? What does this young man, have to do with that chiseler? And she is supposed to have some sort of influence over this giant sack of angry flesh. So who knows, maybe it is her fault, but I would never say such a thing. He smiles beatifically. I have some other questions. I'd like to buy a slave. Flint's eyes light up. If his smile got any wider, it would tear itself off his face and go scampering away. So, you're a registered merchant, are you? Got all the proper documents, signed, stamped in all the right places. No. The upturned ends of Flint's mouth sag like deflated balloons. Oh, well, that's terrible news. I'm afraid I can only do business with merchants who are registered at the Sega's Guild of Trade. Of course he's not a licensed buyer. Suddenly Flint glances around in such an exaggerated caricature of stealth that you aren't sure whether he is serious. On the other hand, he whispers, perhaps we can make a deal, beneath the purview of the relevant authorities, as it were. As Mum used to say, with disappointment comes great opportunity. Go on. One of my slaves is not attracting any buyers. He's a young fellow, fresh from the streets of Segis, but I fear he's only a thief, not a murderer or a sadist at all. You can imagine how that's gone over with my clients. Since I cannot sell him in a legitimate manner, I'm forced to go under the proverbial table. You may have him for a mere, 400 shins. No returns, refunds, or restitution. Flint flashes a disturbing wide and toothy grin. I can't imagine what Ma would even want the boy. I'll give you 250. That slave isn't a hardened criminal. Nobody is going to give you a better offer. Wow. This is a difficult sell. 80%. Managed. You have a professional manner about you, sir, and that I like. I will accept 300 shins and not a single shin less. Moreover, Flint draws himself up. This offer is conditional upon your immediate acceptance. Walk away from it now and it's gone for good. Done. I'll pay 300. Very good indeed. Flint grabs your hand with both of his, shakes it vigorously and gathers up your shins, shoving them into various pockets and purses. Then he shakes your hands again, both of them this time, and the deal is struck. Excellent. I thought I'd never get that much for the boy. Next to you, Rin is bouncing on the balls of her feet, doing a poor job of containing her smile. Your property shall be extricated from the pit momentarily. I believe his name is Cody. He's a lot older than I thought. I thought he'd be like Rin's age. The young man takes a deep breath, as though preparing himself for something. He looks directly into your eyes. His expression is not merely sober, it's resigned and emotionless, almost dead. So, what now? This is what you signed up for. Do it, Cody. Do it and be free. How did you become a slave? He shrugs. Got caught stealing. Didn't that toothy merchant tell you? Is thievery really a capital offense in Sega's Cliffs? I don't know. I volunteered to earn my freedom. What are you good at? He grimaces. Stealing's all I ever known, really. He thinks for a moment and adds, I guess I'm good with my hands? What do you want to do? He jerks his head back, apparently surprised by the question. Then he shrugs. Whatever you want, sir. I belong to you now. I want to set you free, I guess. I don't really know what I want to do with him. Rin clutches your wrist, a smile bursting across her face. Hello, Hugo. How's it going? What? A mix of emotion you can't read washes over his face. Why? I'm a criminal. A killer. You can't set me free. A killer? I thought you were only a thief. He looks away, but not before you catch a wet shine on his eyes. I killed my sister. We were kids. I used to play pranks on her all the time. Stupid pranks. But I never meant any harm. But one time. He swallows hard. Twice. Then his story bursts out of him like water from a dam. Cassandra couldn't swim, right? But she loved the water. She'd go out on the harbor every day in this little coracle. Just to scare her, I dug a leak in the boat. Then I hid behind a rock and waited for her to come, but I... He looks down at his feet, his face completely shadowed. I fell asleep. I woke up to her screaming, but she was too far out. I was too late to save her. Just telling it hurts so much. How can I be free of this? So you turned yourself in as a murderer. I can understand that. I didn't turn myself in for a long time. I spent 10 years running, wishing I could just cut out my heart so I wouldn't have to feel the guilt and pain anymore. He clutches his chest for emphasis. The third time they caught me for stealing, they told me I was a man now, responsible for my actions and old enough for a man's prison. I thought about what that meant, to be a man, to own what I did. And I decided I had to start over, but not before I'd paid for what I've done. I heard others volunteer for slavery, like letting the bloom decide what you were, whether you were worthy of freedom or not. I decided, one way or another, that that's how I would be free too. I respect your choice. I will keep you as a slave until the bloom or fate decides. No! It's a stupid choice. Set him free. I'm sorry, Rin. Cody has made his choice, and so have I. A shuddering breath escapes him. He nods. Yes. Yes, that is right. This is my crime. No one can take the punishment from me. I'll be back later. Alright.
I'm ready.
Mr. waits for prey.
All right, Ren, you can do this.
A metal construct stands before you, silent and still. Its armor is pitted and ancient, spiked with metal thorns. Instead of arms, the construct has long killing blades, sharpened to a gleaming edge. What are you doing? Methkina whispers. I wouldn't talk to this monster. I've seen it kill some powerful people, and some powerful, not people too. I don't like the way it looks at me either. You sense a mind inside the machine. It is a mind so alien that although you can hear it, you cannot understand its thoughts. Who are you? The construct stirs and a voice emanates from somewhere in its depths. It has a hollow, empty sound, as if it speaks from a vast cavern underground. I am a soldier, a predator. My names are as numerous as the wars in which I have fought. But those wars are finished now, and I have left my names behind. Who created you? I do not know, nor have I ever known. They culled all record of themselves from our minds. I only remember those for whom I fought, and there have been many such masters over many long millennia of service. For a time I believe my siblings and I slept. I do not know for how long. Then we were awakened by new masters, the Tabat. We fought for them until they were no more. You fought for the Tabat? What do you remember about them? Much. They ruled this land as warlords before the buildings of Segus Cliffs. They were slaves to an edifice known as the Underspine. Yet they were its masters as well. I do not know where they came from or who they were before they rose to power, for those things happened before they awakened me. I remember this too. They held single combat as the highest virtue, revealing the quality of one's soul. They believed that we had powerful souls, my siblings and I, for none of them could defeat us alone. They fought on two-legged beasts, brandishing weapons of another age, unearthed from great hoards beneath the ground. That is also where they found me and my siblings. They awakened us, spoke the proper words, so we killed on their command. What happened to the Tabat? The construct's blade arms twitched convulsively. A vast explosion buried the underspine, and their city, and most of my siblings as well. The remaining Tabat were hunted and slain by those they had ruled and enslaved, and I was left alone, save for a few of my kind. I have some other questions. Ask them. I will answer if I can. What are you doing here? Waiting. The word is hollow and cold. For those who are strong and feared, for the predators who walk the bloom, they come here, at times, to challenge me. If I prove myself to be a predator above all others, I believe that the bloom tongues will catch my scent. The clicks and hisses from inside the construct's armor suddenly go quiet. I wish to be devoured by the bloom. Have you not seen those who have passed through the gullet of the bloom? Every trace of who they were have been stripped from them. They are freed from the trappings of memory and self, reborn. Killing powerful predators makes you more appetizing to the bloom. So I believe. The construct is silent for a moment, as if considering. I have observed the patterns of its hunger over many feeding cycles. Anyway, always it is those who prey on others who draw the attention of the bloom tongues. The greater the predator, the more powerful their victims, the more the bloom desires them. The construct's voice becomes less hollow, higher pitched and more grating, and I have killed many, so many. I have torn men and beasts asunder, left their bones and entrails to putrefy as an offering to the bloom tongues, and still it will not devour me. Why does it wait? I cannot know. Why do you crave rebirth? How many years have you lived? Only a few, judging by the firmness of your flesh. In that time, what horrors have you witnessed or perpetrated? Do they slip into your mind in unguarded moments? Perhaps they do. Whatever horrors you have seen, multiply them by 1,000, 100,000, across a vast grinding millennium of wars. Now imagine you cannot forget, cannot even distract yourself with other memories. Do you know what I remember? Only those things that would make me a better killer. Every severed limb, every gout of heart's blood, every cruel execution before a cheering crowd. All else is lost, for that is how my creators fashioned my brain. That is why I crave rebirth and forgetfulness. You claim to be troubled by the violent things you've seen and done, but you're a killing machine. Why should those things bother you? A long moment passes before the construct speaks. I have pondered that question for all the years since I awoke on your world, and also during the long eons of my sleep. For centuries I felt no such revulsion at the memories of my past, but over time the horror grew in my mind, and in the minds of all my brethren. The construct pauses again as if considering its next words. I have come to believe that our creators intended this. Perhaps they understood the terrors we could visit upon the world, and this was their way of ensuring that we would not endure forever. If our foes did not destroy us, then we would be driven to destroy ourselves. I haven't met anyone who's been eaten by the bloom and lived. Walk the innards of this city monster for long enough and you will meet them. A series of lights flash in quick succession on one side of the construct's faceplate. Even now I can taste the transdimensional footfalls of one such man. You may find him in the vast interior space beyond the arterial opening. There. The construct gestures with one blade arm to its right. Once he possessed a name that was well known in this place, before it was stolen by another. Now he walks alone, forgotten, and without fear. Farewell. A series of lights flash beneath the construct's faceplate, but it makes no audible reply.
If you're sure it's safe.
What's going on over here? A pale, heavy-set merchant woman stands by an agitated Anine. Her eyes seem to have trouble focusing on you, and when they do, she drops them, her hands nervously adjusting the scarf around her neck. Need help. Can't think. I must... I'm Skidi. You here to trade? Let me see what you have for sale. Bonded item artifact. Max effort on all non-combat tasks. Clockwork strut, plus 30% evasion. That's pretty damn strong. But I don't know if we have anyone who can really use more bonded artifacts in a way that makes sense. Really? Like, it's me if I can get rid of this. This is only gives perception, which isn't really that interesting. This is actually pretty good, because it basically means you can guarantee 100% chance on almost everything. Ciphers don't care, weapons don't care. I already have a sting charge, so... I guess it's really just this then. 500 bucks. Alright, fine. Let's get it. Glyphs of unknown planets circling a binary star are inscribed on this talisman. This disc melds with the user's chest, filling them with determination and sickening thoughts of violence. Oh, that sounds really cool.
Not bad.
Rin says this is another of her gods. Okay, so now she... Now she can't use any of these slots. Okay, that's cool. Oh, whatever. It'll have to do. Why are you wearing that heavy scarf? Her eyes meet yours, and for a moment you almost think there's a pleading quality to them. Then they blaze with fury. That's none of your business. Leave me be or just leave. As she speaks, she fiddles with her scarf again. And you notice splotches of blood on it. Scarf? I forgot. I'd put it on to hide. Nothing. It hides nothing. Try to see under her scarf? You have a little something on your scarf. Right there, under your chin. I'm just gonna pull it off. Ina, 80%, Rin, 95. Tugging the merchant's scarf reveals jagged, still bleeding teeth marks across her neck. She yelps in surprise and leaps away from you, hastily pulling her scarf back up. How dare you put your hands on me? Get away! Please, just leave us alone. She glances at her Anine, eyes wide, like a child with a guilty conscience. Just leave us alone, she hisses, waving you away. You realize that the marks on her neck match the blunt teeth of a large herbivore, like her Anine. Okay. A large and agitated beast looms over you. It's an Anin, a beast of burden. These creatures are normally docile, but this one bares its teeth and snaps at you as you draw near. It rakes the air with its stubby claws. Examine the Anin. Staying just out of biting range, you can see blood around the Anin's mouth. You think back to the wounds on the merchant's neck and the connection is suddenly obvious. The Anin has been feeding on Skady. But as you come to this realization, you glance towards Skady. Once again you catch a glimpse of that pleading look in her eyes before she quickly looks away again. It is clear that something unnatural is happening here. Anin are herbivores and they would never feast on blood or flesh.
Fine.
The pool is filled with yellowish water that falls from above. The surrounding bloom flesh is wet with hand and footprints, suggesting that this is a common place for bloom dwellers to wash and drink. Look into the pool. The pool extends downwards like the circular shaft of a well. If it has a bottom, you can't see it from here. In the depths of the pool, your sharp eyes catch sight of a long worm-like shape. It appears to be caught on a projection of bloom flesh, and it's wriggling helplessly about. Can't.
Yes. Yes. Now.
Still a very low chance of succeeding. 70, okay, 90%. You plunge into the murky fluid. As you dive deeper, you see that the shaft opens into a much larger cavity. At the edge of the larger space, you reach the wriggling shape you saw from above and struggle to untangle it from a bony knot of bloom flesh. Finally, it slips free and you swim for the surface, reaching the top just before you run out of air. In the light of the courtyard, you see that the wriggling object is some sort of bloated worm, its skin continuously shifting from one material to another. Silvery metal to pliable synth, to leathery scales, to other materials that you can't identify. It seems to be drawn to your exposed flesh and it would likely fasten itself to your arm or leg if you allowed it to do so. Cipher. Confers protected. Okay, cool. Collect some of the fluid. You find a small discarded flask at the edge of the well, and fill it with the yellowish fluid. Confers bloom juiced, eerie whispers fill your mind, hinting at countless secrets to uncover. Active until next sleep. Drink some of the fluid. You take a sip of the yellowish water. It has a greasy texture and a slight sour taste, but it quenches your thirst. You take another sip, and you start to hear whispers. They're faint at first, but they grow louder, resolving into the chittering voices of the bloom. They buzz in your ears, scratching at the inside of your skull. You stumble, struggling to keep your balance. Even as your senses dull, the bloom's voices seem clearer than before. Rin also gains it because we're wearing the rings. The world spins and you find yourself staring at the Anin that stands nearby. It meets yours. They are baleful and bright. You realize that the bloom's voices are not speaking to you, they're speaking to the Anin, filling its tiny mind with hunger to feed upon its owner Skady, biting her neck, lapping up the warm blood. The whispers are speaking to Skady too, deadening her senses, filling her mind with a helpless apathy. Skady eyes you suspiciously, tugging at her heavy scarf. What do you want this time? Why can't I talk to her about that? Can you tell me about the bloom? The bloom? For a moment she appears confused, as if she doesn't remember where she is. No, what's to tell? What happens if we just look under her scarf? I do? Where? The woman pulls the scarf from her neck to look at it, revealing jagged, still bleeding teeth marks on her throat. She sees you staring at them and realizes she's been duped. Dirty trickster, she snarls as she pulls the scarf tightly. Go try your games on someone else. Please, just leave us alone. She glances at her Anine, eyes wide like a child with a... Yeah, we've seen that one already. Okay, so what do we do about this? Examine the Anine again. Touch the Anine. As you approach, it snaps its head forward, snarling. Pull your hand away. Rin pulls her hand away. You jerk your hand back and the Anine's jaws snap shut scant inches from your fingertips. Okay.
As you wish.
I don't know if you can help them. I'd like to talk to some of the people of the Bloom. No.
Fine.
Well, I guess there's not much to say. Oh, what's this?
Go.
A metal pylon, so polished it might be crystal, has been thrust into the Bloom flesh at the junction of two armored neural axons. Whether the bulbous protrusions around it is an effect of the invasion or whether it was the reason for the insertion in the first place is impossible to judge. Like so much of the Bloom, it oozes both mystery and mucus. I think this is part of a dimensional anchor, Calistige says as much to herself or herselves as to you. But if it is, whoever was building it didn't get very far. Examine the pylon. As best you can tell, Calistige was right. The pylon represents the foundation of a dimensional anchor, but just the foundation. To be sure, it is in some ways the most difficult part to construct, but it is worthless without a variety of additional property-attuned Numenera. To finish the project would be a considerable undertaking, far more than you could hope to attempt. You notice that there is a deep sulcus in the Bloom flesh where it meets the pylon. The talc filling the crevice makes it impossible to tell what, if anything, is inside. Study the Bloom flesh nodule and the neural sheaths running outward from it. Judging from the ancillary organs that protrude from the nodule, it seems to be the organic equivalent of a regional control center. Not a true brain, but something more than a mere cluster of nerves. It's unclear whether it's a part of some larger mind, or a near sentient organism of its own. Reach into the sulcus. Your forearm deep in warm, mucousy talc when your fingers brush against something with a hard edge, obviously not part of the Bloom flesh, but also distinct from the pylon. Unfortunately, your touch has dislodged it and it begins sinking deeper into the crevice. Try to grab it. Ina, you suck. You did it. Good job. You plunge in deeper and catch hold of the metal object. With relief, you pull your arm and the recovered cipher out from the mucousy sulcus. Sunspot icon opens a channel to the nearest celestial body, fires a blast that deals 28 energy damage and confers blinded to the nearest enemy on each turn it is active. What do you mean each turn it is active? Active 2 rounds. Okay, so it does 56 damage. That's not what it says. It doesn't say. Target point on ground. Well, it might mean that it's active for 2 rounds. Or it could mean that the blind lasts for 2 rounds. Who knows? Whatever. Reach into the sulcus again. As you slide your arm back into the throbbing crevice, déjà vu washes over you. There's an old man rambling on about a thought experiment. It involves some kind of prehistoric rodent capable of telepathically linking its mind with others of its kind. Perhaps a forebear of the Ceterdin. The old man posits that if enough of these rodents gathered together, the sheer power of their conjoined desire would be enough to change reality. And for what world would these scavengers wish, he asks, rhetorically. One where everything, even the very dirt, is man's detritus, eh? It seems that he intends to manipulate the Bloom's transdimensional nature to test his Murine Dreamtime hypothesis. Such meddling, of course, cannot be tolerated, so as he natters on you, you slip the sunspot totem into the sulcus. It seems implausible that the codger will ever complete his dimensional anchor, but now, at least, you can be sure that it will not interfere with your own plans in the Bloom. The memory fades. You pull your hand out of the mucus. Yep, and nothing more happens. Okay, so we put it there.
Yes.
I think we're done here. We are very, very low on stats, but I think we'll manage. It's just strength that we're low on now.
So that was the sorrow in its full power, Castor? What else have you been hiding from me?
It shouldn't concern you, Calistige. It hunts cast-offs. Then why did it look at me? Her face is ashen. It saw me. It saw through me to all of the thousands of realities where my sisters reside. And I knew. I knew that if it ever came after me, if I so much as crossed its path again, it would undo me, for now and for all time, simply by virtue of knowing you. She quietens, and stares at you with a mixture of disgust, despair, and admiration. How can I stay with you? She asks, taking a step back. How can you ask this of me? Knowledge. That's why I started this path with him. Is it still enough? You want to know how this ends. More, you want to know what my creator knew. She looks at you, taking in your words with barely more than a flicker of acknowledgement. Then she moves slowly toward you until you stand face to face. Do not let it devour me, she says, searching your eyes. That is all I ask. I am with you, child. Okay.
Alright, here I go.
Be fine. We'll be fine.
I'll handle it.
Can't we just hack our way through? Nope, like I said, it ain't there anymore. But you told us this was the way. Used to be, now it ain't. The Bloom does what she likes. As you approach, you see two well-dressed merchants in heated conversation with a wiry man who is wearing an assortment of odd-looking leathers and hides. Upon seeing you, the wiry fellow shoos the merchants away and turns in your direction. Instead of feet, you notice he has two hand-like appendages, fashioned from metal and synth. Indeed, both of his legs have been replaced by these artificial arms that appear remarkably flexible. Looking for the trade post, the wiry man flashes a lopsided grin and jabs a thumb at the giant toothy jaw behind him. Used to be in there, till the Bloom got hungry and ate it. At least I think that's what happened. Never can tell with this big old sack of guts we call home. Was there people in there? Do they need help? So the trade post was destroyed? Could be, but I'd guess it's still around. He squints towards a nearby wall of flesh as if expecting the trade post to make a sudden reappearance, then shrugs. No telling where though. If I was you, I'd try to find a maw that would take me there. Ought to be one around here somewhere. The bloom never closes off a path for long, but finding it again, that's a whole different story.
Making a note.
Name's Grisler, by the way. Bloom Guide, Explorer and Scout. 3 times eaten by the bloom and still intact. Well, mostly. He wiggles the artificial fingers on one of his feet. Where would I go look for 'em all? Grisler purses his lips. Used to be I could answer that question easy enough, but I'd tell you just where to find them. And where they lead and what to feed them, but something's got the bloom all riled up and she's opening and closing maws however she likes. He shakes his head disapprovingly as if talking about his own disobedient child. Change is coming. I can smell it, figuratively anyway. So if I was you, I'd try the darkest corners of this gut bag I could find. Dank and nasty places, that's where the maws like to rip themselves into being. The slums are a good place to start. Niliesh. That's how you say it. Niliesh. Little Niliesh. Chirurgeon slump. Foul little holes like that. You said the bloom is acting strangely. Do you know why? She's hungry for something, or someone. I can hear it in her voice. Just like when a maw wants to eat somebody, only this time it's the whole bloom. This sort of thing used to scare me. It did. Probably still should. I wonder if the Memovira knows who the bloom wants to eat. I'll bet she does. Very well. You don't need to ask everybody about everything.
If you're sure it's safe.
So what do we have here? A blister of flesh protrudes from the ground, an irritated, angry pustule. It is almost entirely opaque, but you see the faintest hints of movement within. Examine the cyst. You study the movement within the cyst more closely, as if in response to your curiosity, the shadow of a hand claws at the interior and vanishes. Someone or something is trapped inside the cyst. Touch the cyst. You feel something pressing against your mind, a sharp presence like the thought of pain thrusting its experiences into your imagination. As your fingers brush the flesh of the cyst, the memories come pouring in, flooding your thoughts. With emotions of lives you have never lived, stories from countless lives lost in the bloom. You reach out for a random memory in this whirling maelstrom, and its particulars become immediately shockingly clear. A world of senses explodes into your mind. You know instantly that you are in an abandoned cavity deep in the bloom. You hear moisture beating on the threaded veins over your head, and the chittering of other creatures that share this place with you. Your sight is limited and blurry, but a profusion of colors explodes across your vision, and you associate each with a smell. And the smell, it's a warring kaleidoscope of rich inputs that instantly categorize themselves in your mind. Food, fetid warmth, family, and shelter lie ahead, beneath the base of a thick, outflung tentacle. It is a burrow opening, just the right size for your tiny body. The globules of bloom flesh in your cheeks will sustain your brood for days. But then the wind... But then the wind shifts and a sharp scent freezes you in your step. Fear suffuses your mind and you realize that death is at your heels. Turn to see what stalks you. The creature is vaguely feline, enormously tall to your newly tiny form, and thickly muscled, its purple stripes and rigid frills along its flanks. Killing incisors, each almost as large as you, fill its cavernous mouth, and its powerful claws can smash you flat. It sees you and lunges. Roommate times beginning in 10 minutes for 2 months? Sad smiley. Hey, maybe he just stays down in the basement the whole time. Like, you never know. Maybe it won't be that bad. Maybe he's gonna come talk to you all the time. about all kinds of normie shit. I had a friend live here for, I don't know how long it was. If it was a month or 2 months. Or 3 months? I don't remember. It was a really long time. It might have just been 2 months or something. But I have a 1-room apartment. That was pretty rough. Yeah, I mean, give him something to do, right? Like, you have multiple rooms. You have like a gaming room, dude. I'm sure he can think of something to do. I doubt he'll want to hang out the entire time either. Nice of you to take him in though, but it's like it's hard to not. Like, what else can you do? Like, if you're someone's only choice, right? Like, what are you gonna do? Like, no, just stay on the street? Like, there's just no choice, right? You just gotta do it. Leap into the safety of the burrow. You bolt on your 4 feet, a burst of adrenaline powering your tiny muscles. As the creature behind you snaps and snarls at your fleeing tail, you leap into the burrow and the monster claws and scratches at the opening behind you, its frilled head blocking the light. But it cannot get in after you. The creature stalks the perimeter and waits hours for you to emerge. But you never do. Eventually, it snarls and pads away. You wake from the vision, your body shaking involuntarily from the experience. A brief moment later and you are reoriented in your own flesh. You find yourself once again standing before the massive cyst in the bloom. You kept your hosts safe, but you sense that wasn't what was needed here. This vision and the others contained within the cyst's fibers are a lock of sorts. To open it, you will need to suffer. You will need to become prey. Oh. Touch the cyst again. You steel yourself for another memory of pain and reach out to touch the cyst again. Again, the unbidden memories spring into your mind and you lose yourself among them until you reach out and seize one. Please, you whisper, hands raised. Clean white dust, untouched by the taint of the bloom, cakes your slender fingers. I worked for years on this sculpture. I've molded it with beams and chisels, and with my bare hands when my tools ran dry. This is the only thing in my life that has meaning. Something in the stone is calling to me. It needs to be given shape. I know that, says the man who used to be your friend. I've seen what it has done to you. He holds the large hammer in his hands. His fists are shaking. You've changed. Ever since you brought this hunk of rock back from that other world, you've changed. It's not art that compels you. There's life already in that thing, and it's using you to get out. He hefts the hammer. I'm here to stop it. You won't ruin my creation. Step aside. This is your last warning. I will destroy it, and if I have to go through you, I will. I'll protect this sculpture with my life. It is my creation. As you wish. His hammer is faster than you would have believed, and it blasts the bones in your hand to powder. You fall back, the pain following, and he strikes at the statue directly. The first shot elicits a high-pitched shriek from the stone, and you throw yourself in front of the sculpture to keep another one from landing. Don't make me... He never finishes the sentence, but swings again. Your shoulder collapses with a wet crunch. You embrace the statue, shielding it from the hammer. After a few blows, he focuses entirely instead on you, grunting and growling. Blood spatters the stone behind your cheek, or beside your cheek. At last you topple bonelessly to the ground and watch as he reduces your masterpiece to a pile of rubble and splinters. You struggle to summon a single breath, a single sob. When the blackness comes, you welcome it. You return to your own mind with the death of your host, knowing that what you saw, what you felt, was true. The life you lived was full, rich, and ended here in the bloom. Your host's remaining moments were saturated with pain. Your muscles still twitch with the memory of agony, and your suffering bleeds into the cyst, loosening its fleshy fibers. It appears that the bloom has sealed something within the cyst, and your agony is the key that will set it loose. Touch the cyst again. You steel yourself for another memory of pain and reach out to touch the cyst again. Again, the unbidden memories spring into your mind, and you lose yourself among them until you reach out and seize one. Your head is throbbing, aching, feels like it's going to split wide open. You are trying to retreat from the battle for this region of the bloom, holding a tower of iron will against your scion foes. But they batter at it ceaselessly, and you can feel your defenses crumbling. If you strike back, you can save your allies, but you will open yourself to your enemies' minds. You saw what they did to Alito. Every pore in his body started leaking blood. His screams are still haunting you. Drop your defenses and strike. The moment your shields fall, they pounce on you, feeding you psychoses and traumas dredged up from your ancestral primitive past. They start to tear apart your concept of self, placing illusions of love lost and lives lived that are not your own. They whip you with empathy, and you feel a backdoor attack on your psychomotor functions. The agony is exquisite. You use the pain and rage to lash out at the weakest mind, and you realize then that you are fighting a hive consciousness. You cannot defeat these creatures, united as they are. Your only hope is to defend yourself, or one of your squadmates, but only one of the 10 of you can survive the concerted attacks of the hive. Keep striking back. Maybe you can distract the hive for long enough. You strike, and you strike, and you strike again. You channel your fear into a devastating blow aimed at the heart of the nest, but the energy vanishes. You think. Lines of control snakes through your body, dominating you and painting new truths on your mind. Each silver-thin thread draws a universe of pain through your exposed nerves. As your mind slowly dies, your foes show you the bodies of your fallen comrades. Not one escaped, they died in agony. So do you. Consciousness calls you back to its arms, and you find yourself aching emotionally and physically from these experiences. Your muscles throb and pulse with the residue of the fight or flight response, and the cyst again responds to your pain. Its fibers loosen further. God damn, how many times do I need to do this shit? Oh no, this is the first one again. Turn to see what stalks you. Stand your ground and protect your family. You turn and rear, filling yourself with air to make yourself seem larger. The beast lunges at you, and one of its paws smashes down upon your spine, snapping it in an instant. That enormous mouth closes on you, and a mighty tooth pierces your side. The creature tears savagely at you, and then, apparently not liking the taste, spits you out. It snarls, baffled, and pads back into the dripping darkness of the bloom. Gasping, you drag your barely functioning body towards the burrow, but your limbs go numb and stop moving. The world blurs around you. Aching with unbearable loneliness, you welcome the sweet release of death. The ache in your heart has become familiar, even as the sorrow and heartbreak seem new and fresh each time. Different facets of the same emotion, each refracted through a new experience. The cyst's fibers twitch again, loosening one final time, revealing a frail, angular creature trapped inside. It bursts out of the cyst, leaving a glittering object behind in its haste to escape. Huh? Bye-bye. Now that the cyst has disgorged its prisoner, the husk looks hollow, deflated, defeated. Examine the remains. Something catches your eye. It's a piece of sharp metal that protrudes from just underneath a fold of decaying bloom flesh. You cannot begin to guess at its functions, but it's small and easy to carry. You slip it into your pouch. Oh, it's a quest item, mesmeric handle. This device is inert because it lacks power, but its potential energies are great, tapped and conducted through strange dimensions. It would require an appropriate power source to reactivate the missing blade. Oh, okay, you can make a weapon out of this, I think. The creature within the cyst was an abacos, a being that feeds on trans-dimensional energies. Assuming that it was in the cyst for any length of time, it must have been surviving by draining energy from the object you just found. A closer examination of the object should tell you more. Examine the remains again. Nothing there. This device resembles the hilt of a weapon. It rests easily in your hand, but there is no blade. Inspect the device. The device is made of azure steel. It appears to be inert and has no obvious function. A stylized name is inscribed into the steel. IOXU. Behind a strong glass plate you find a compartment that contains an old, depleted power source. It's blackened and drained, so you toss it aside. You could place another power source inside the compartment, but it may require a particular type of energy. Based on your understanding of the technology, it seems as though the device would require a trans-dimensional power source, something that harnesses the energy of singularities or parallel universes. Bye. Near a display of goods that all appear to be made of bloom flesh, either tanned, beaten, or carved or cured, stands an old man who looks fairly tanned, beaten, carved, and cured himself. He also has startling yellow eyes. "Hello," he exclaims, "admiring my stock? You won't find anything else like it, not even here in the bloom, all handcrafted and one of a kind. Let me see your wares." Medium bloom flesh armor. Bloom bone shard. Light melee weapon. On critical hits, forced to fight on the caster's side for 1 turn. +1 speed edge. Oh, this is OP. -2 speed pool. This is good even if you have to take this hit. The only one who can make any use of it is this. Still not really clean? Oh no. Well, yeah. I mean, it's not like I can say anything about that. I don't have the energy to clean at all. Most of the time. I only do it when my parents come by. And it's like a rushed clean. But I only have 1 room, so it's not that bad. It's the kitchen that sucks. This is extremely expensive. I can't afford it, even if I wanted to. Maybe we can sell some things? That's a good clean. You have ciphers. Are any of them really expensive? That much. I don't really care about them. Pride Heart Rainbow Filly? You too, Hugo. Now, do I want this weapon instead? It does almost twice as much damage, I think, but I don't think I care. I'd rather have this. I don't know if I want this either. Because this gives a lot of damage, right? But edge is good, because it just means you get more easier max damage. You use up less of your pool every single time you do something. Yeah, let's get it. Think he should just get a husband instead? I think so too. We can get rid of this one, it's not really that good. Maybe I should get a husband. This friendly looking youth is dipping strips of cured bloom flesh into colored dye. He looks up as you approach, revealing startling yellow eyes, just like the ones of his employer. Hello, sir. Are you interested in our wares? They're handcrafted and one of a kind. You look an awful lot like your employer. Are you related? Heh, you noticed that? Well, you should talk to him. He gets a kick out of telling people about it. I admit I like seeing the look on people's faces when he does. I'm interested in your wares. Great, you should talk to my elder. He handles the actual trading. Okay.
I'll handle it.
Back for more, I see. Who could blame you? All our products are crafted from the most unique bloom flesh we can find. I have some questions for you. I couldn't help but notice that you and your apprentice looks very much alike. Can't just collapse half-dressed on random couches and stare at the ceiling? Yeah, that's pretty bad. Well spotted, well spotted. He grins widely, a twinkle in his eye. And why would you speculate that is, sir? Ah, I love telling this story. He'll never guess. Even time is not simple in this world. I think he is you. Ah, well done! He claps you on the back. Not many people manage to figure that one out. Let me tell you what happened, or will happen if you like. Actually, that Eon priest in the slump saw it too. Is it somehow more obvious than it used to be? One day soon, my younger self will be walking along when the bloom will open a maw beneath him, and he'll tumble into another world, years in the past, or maybe the journey to the past will be when he tries to come back. Whatever the case, it'll take him many decades and worlds to travel back here. He smiles wistfully. I envy him the experiences he will have, but thank him for the memories. Doesn't knowing what will happen change the future? He frowns, puzzled. Why? I knew what was coming, but it hasn't changed my past. I guess. Thanks for your time. The Chirurgeon Slump. Old slave bulk.
Of course.
Walks without fear. Hello. At first you're not sure if your eyes are playing tricks on you. A semi-transparent man shuffles and struts before you, his body fading into and out of incorporeality. His once fine clothes have rotted away. His long beard looks to be host to any number of small vermin, and his eye sockets are disturbingly empty. She studies the man, mentally subtracting and adding his features, and suddenly gives a sharp intake of breath. She whispers, "Can it be? Can it be? No? He couldn't have survived." Somehow the man hones directly on your face and you have the unnerving feeling that he can see more than what's on the surface. The staring sockets are deep and cavernous as if they contained depths and space beyond the confines of his skull. He says nothing to you. Matkina, who is this man? This is the old Memovira. Don't you see? This man knows all the secrets of the bloom. He was tied to it, bonded to it. I worked for him for years, alongside that bitch who occupies the position now. When he disappeared, she threw me out. I looked for him for a long time. She turns her attention to the bearded man. Sir, it's Matkina. You called me the White Death, remember? He turns his cavernous eye sockets to her, and they study her for a long time, considering. Life begins to seep into his face, and a small smile creeps across his lips. I think I remember, but memories are lost in the telling. He thinks again. Better to tell it now and have the story remembered. You say I am the old Memovira, so we must speak of the new to understand my tale. That face, so familiar. Memovira? Yes, and she my White Death. I remember. His lips part in a feral smile as he grasps at the last memories in his mind. The new Memovira. Ha! What has she done worth mentioning? Who trembles at her voice? Tell me, who fears her steps? Who among her people wouldn't slip a blade into her back? Oh, she did for me, it's true. Her and her coterie. How do you pronounce that? Coterie? Lower the volume on the Brave browser. Coterie.
Coterie.
Coterie. Coterie. Coterie. Her and her coterie, but I had loyal retainers to the end. Loyalty and fear, like a fist. She may have taken my place, but she'll never match my rule. If the bloom hadn't turned against me after my decade in power, I'd be there still, but she dragged me to the heart of the beast and let it sift through my mind, fed it all my crimes, and then she left me there. He swallows. Ask your questions of me, while the fragments of memory still linger. Ask now and make the questions count. I think it calls your party that? Yeah, and it does use torpor. Tell me about your reign as the Memovira. He smiles, a cruel thing almost lost in his beard. I lived with my knife in my hand. I never lost my love for its kiss. I took what I wanted and I shared with the best of my crew. But I had laws, mind you. Laws and strictures that kept the merchants pouring through the bloom. No sense in scaring off the easy meat. No need to be greedy. They said I was weak, but that was because they didn't know how strong I truly was. And that's why the bitch came for me. Too grasping she was. Her face is more animated than you have ever seen it. Do you recall when we came down the Repcod and their trade in sense stealers? You plugged their leader into his own machine and the feedback melted his eyes, and then the rest of them. You said something to the bloom, and the floor wrapped around their ankles, and you had us go back to feed them for years, until their legs atrophied away. Matkina, my White Death, is that you? I do remember that. He starts laughing, a hollow, ragged, terrible sound. A disused engine choked on pain. I remember that. You were magnificent that day. He turns back to you. Quick, ask another question. What do you think of the new Memovira? He snarls. A backstabbing harlot, a scheming whore. She couldn't hope to hold what I'd built. She has a talent for brutality, but no mind for structure. Even if I've forgotten her, I'll laugh when the bloom devours her. And it will. The bloom tires of her even more quickly than I. Soon now. How did the new Memovira unseat you? She knew the Bloom was angry with me. She told me she'd been below and had seen something that she thought might explain why I lost my bond. I didn't know she'd hidden her killers around the Bloom, or that she was the one who'd ruined shipments or driven off the citizens. She'd pulled her muscle into play, and I never even saw it. And she took me to the heart of the Bloom. He swallows. When you went down, her thugs moved in. They killed everyone in the fortress who had sworn for you. They hunted us down in the belly of the Bloom. They cast us through moss under unfamiliar suns. I fled into the city with a few of your lieutenants, and we had to kill some of our friends to get through the gates. And once we'd settled in up there, she started hunting us in the city too. She shakes her head. She cast aside years of tradition to hunt me. I'd have sworn loyalty when you died. Nothing you could have done. Nothing. She was bold and fast. What happened in the heart of the Bloom? The memories slip, lights skittering down a tunnel. As I grab them, they go. No. His voice pleads. Stop them. They're me. A look of pity crosses her face. She catches your gaze and she shakes her head and looks away. I know this pain. Oh, I know his pain, she says. I know. Who are you? His sockets stare into you for a moment while he considers. At least he shakes his head and says, I do not know. I have language and I have the memory of muscles, but I do not remember how I came by these truths. What I remember is walking to the depths of the Bloom. I remember walking. I remember years of darkness before I emerged into the upper reaches at last. You came from the depths of the Bloom. What did you see down there? If I speak of them, the memories disappear from me forever, yet thoughts themselves are ephemeral. Like our lives, gone, and only those who choose to share have any hope of continuation. But even that memory is vanity. In a generation, who will remember these words? His socketless eyes look away and then back again and smiles gently. Let me tell you what I saw. My memories are useless. Perhaps telling him will increase their life. The Bloom reaches through dimensions and across realities. What did I see? I saw a vast beating heart. I traveled through skeins of the Bloom's arteries and its viscera. I stood in open maws and looked out across alien landscapes where lost sailors mourn for home, or crystal fields glitter under distant stars. I walked through the slave block where the great Chila staged her revolution. What would you know? Tell me of the heart. A great chamber, the place where the Bloom spawns and devours its voices, where its whispers gather in conclave, where its intelligence is strongest and sharpest. I woke. Woke? There, and I knew it for my master. Dangerous. Not to me anymore, but so hungry. Nah, I don't wanna. By the Black Three. Her voice is quiet, reverent. I never dreamed. Power in this place. If I could tame it, make its strength mine. What power did you see? I knew the Bloom reaches across worlds. I knew that my old boss could command the flesh of the Bloom itself, but I never quite understood just how it could be used. Each of the Bloom's tendrils can anchor itself on worlds we barely dream. The Mars are just the tips of those strands. The Bloom is moving through realities. And the person who can control it has all those possibilities at her fingers. With a strike team and good weapons, you could create an empire. And even if the Mars start to close and you lose your grip on the empire, you've still got all those weapons, all that Numenera, all that possibility from each of the worlds the Bloom touches. Rule well and you could be unstoppable. She taps a finger on her lips. Still, there must be a reason why the others haven't done this. Would you sacrifice centuries of your life for a few years of this? You saw the price. You don't know the strength my boss had. I didn't know what he had. You could work wonders with that strength. You could destroy everyone who ever opposed you. Worth thinking about. It is, but, well, let's see what we learn. Maybe this is all theoretical. But her voice is thoughtful and considering. Come on. She bows to the old man. And farewell to you, sir. Farewell.
Of course we can help. Right, Al?
The walls of this dwelling are covered in papers with various threats and slurs written on.
Let's go.
Why? Inside this device is a sizable lump of bloom flesh. It lies upon a comfortable-looking cushion and appears to be asleep. The top of this machine is covered in glass lenses of varying shapes. It appears to be some kind of monitoring device. Text and symbols flash across this screen, all of it meaningless to you. This Vargellan looks much like others of its kind. Violet-red skin, yellow eyes, a tall crest atop its head. This one appears to have chosen a male form for now. He, wears thin lenses over his eyes and some strange device encircles his head, with weighted attachments dangling at the ends of long straps. His calloused pointed fingertips are stained, and his garments are unkempt and in disarray. He looks impatiently at you as you interrupt his work, his eyes snapping between you and the door. His crest inflates with irritation. The interruptions continue. What would you have of Ioksu? Why do you keep looking at the door? He sighs. Apologies from me. The noise and constant interruption from those outside are inconducive to proper behavior. They have been escalating their discussions toward violence.
Updated my journal.
The experiments conducted within this chamber are perhaps unlikely to gain the favor of the Bloom. Indeed, the great beast has evinced some displeasure. Its pathetic worshippers who gather here to mock. Have begun seeking ways to stop me, an effort to appease their deity. He gives you a hopeful look. I would reward anyone who can drive them off. It only shows I am doing something worthy. True knowledge risks danger. He glances behind you for the first time and recoils visibly on seeing Matkina. Can it be? Stories have circulated. They said you were dead, that the Memovira had found you at last. She smiles grimly. Not yet. I'm surprised to see you're still alive, Ioksu. I wouldn't have wagered on it. The Vargellan bows. The White Death honors me. Stories of your prowess continue. In the meantime, I abide, gathering and learning, even in the face of the protesters outside. He shrugs. But knowledge has always had its detractors. They will do what they must. As long as my work lives, I care not. He turns his head from side to side, seeing you with both his eyes. What would you have of me? I have found this device in a bloom cyst. It seems to bear your mark. His eyes bulge and his flat voice gains a tiny bit of modulation. The scalpel! Where did you find this? This was among the first devices I created to test the bloom. A trans-dimensional blade that could cut its flesh cleanly and preserve its properties for study. Yet a thief removed it from my care, an abacus that entered my dwelling and absconded.
Making a note.
A power source for the blade is lacking. Trans-dimensionality is required. No more such sources are to hand here, but perhaps the crashed Katina in Little Nihilish might contain such a source. Should you find one, bring it to this place and I may be able to improve on my earlier design. What sort of work do you do here? Look, smell, taste, measure, understand. Though his voice is flat, you can see the pleasure in his face. Apprehension is the key to knowledge. The bloom is a creature unlike any other, yet who has taken the time to study its nature? The first is Ioksu. The work done here will illuminate the bloom for those who follow. For decades I have been here. Physical structure, biological needs, behavior, mental construction, known history of the beast, history of its inhabitants. All these things I have gathered. Where does it originate? I believe a twin star holds the answer, a place of howling winds and immense gravity. Fear tells me that this creature is not yet mature, that the years will see its size increase. To what purpose? Destruction? Consumption? Ascension? I fear I will never know. Reality bends around the bloom. Its ways twist and turn, but even where stability is assumed, the bloom's presence resists understanding. It resists mapping. This is the importance of my work, to make secrets known so that all may benefit. What's that device in the middle of the room? The bloom detests those who seek to understand it on a rational level. For some time now it has sought my destruction, to erase all accomplished here. The device generates a multi-spectrum field that repels the bloom's advances. Ioxu's lip curls, but this means only that it waits for me without. Had other devices not been available to create food and drink, I should have perished here. Tell me about that construct in the corner. Many years ago it came to my door. It vowed service to me if its memories and personality could be erased. I did not ask why, just as I would hope to have my own reasons respected. He rubs his eyes. It now serves to protect me against those who would do me harm, most specifically the Murdans and cultists. What do you think would make the Bloom cultists leave you alone? Defeating them with reasoned arguments would be difficult. The Vargellan appears to consider. I present no danger to them, not like you. A threat of force might persuade them, but I believe they tell the truth about enjoying the Bloom's favor. To oppose them is to draw its ire. Do you have anything you'd be willing to sell me? He looks around at his cluttered desk. I do not anticipate a need for these devices any longer. Perhaps they can serve you. Bunch of trash, dude. Fluid armature, artifact, +4 armor. OP. Not that I'm expecting a lot of battle, but hey. Cloak of Faces. Heavy ranged weapon. Permanent +1 training level in concentration. Oh. But it's too expensive. Oh well.
Yes.
This man is tall and gawkily thin. His wiry hair looks like an explosion of metal springs atop his head. He regards you with bright, feverish eyes that seem too large for their sockets, and smiles. Even as he motions you closer, the man is scribbling words on a scrap of paper. He has fastened some sort of harness around his body. It holds a tiny writing tablet and inkwell so he can continue to write as he moves about. Dozens of scrawl-covered notes are stuck to his leathery robes. There is one who will aid the Devourer. I've heard rumors of one fitting your description, one who knows the secrets of the world, who speaks with the divine. Help us, brother, he intones with a wet and breathy voice. We are extremities of the great Devourer, and we beseech your aid to right a great wrong. Extremities of the great Devourer? Bloom cultists. The fancy name doesn't make them any less crazy. You walk in the company of a heretic, I see. The awkward-looking man peers at Matkina, then scribbles furiously on his paper. But heresy has its root in fear. Fear that chokes the ears and drowns out the voices of the great Devourer. We do not hate the heretic. We pity her. The White One corrupts him. No matter. The wise will see reason. We are those who venerate the bloom as divine. We seek to become a part of it, if it will have us. He pauses. We are the only ones who can see that a great wrong has been done here. What sort of wrong? A terrible torment, he whispers, visited upon the bloom. Our god, it is the work of Ioxu, the measurer and meddler, who dwells in that nodule of flesh. He raises his pen toward the house that sits on the other side of the platform, red and stinking and inflamed.
Making a note.
Ioxu desires to understand the bloom, to quantify its impulses. This causes pain to our god. His eyes bulge even wider, and it occurs to you that you haven't once seen him blink. The evidence is clear for all to see, in the raw and swollen flesh of Ioxu's house. We have warned Ioxu to stop his pokings and proddings and measurings, but he will not listen. What methods are left to us? He lets the question hang in the air, an unspoken threat. Perhaps you can help him to change his mind. I won't do it. Ioxu has done nothing wrong. A flash of something dark and murderous crosses his face, but he quickly averts his eyes, returning to his scribbling. Our god remembers such words, he mutters, but it also remembers those who ease its pain, and it rewards them. You need to stop harassing Ioxu. Ha! His laugh is a discordant shriek. While our god suffers, so will the damned Ioxu. He'll have no peace, no rest as long as we live. Look at yourself, all skin and twisted bone. I could break you like a twig, and I will if you don't do as I ask. 65% now. Can we do this? Need more might.
Here. Now.
100%. There, it just costs me all of my might.
Making a note.
He swallows hard and licks his lips. Blasphemer, he whispers. Have your way then. You may be stronger than me, but the bloom will destroy Ioxu in time. And it will kill you too. As he departs, you hear harsh whispers all around you, the wrathful voices of the bloom. After a few moments, they fade. Let him be a fool. The bloom will consume him.
Yes.
Oh, does she have cipher sickness? No, she doesn't. It's the bug. The ring causes cipher sickness when I get cipher sickness, and then when I get rid of the cipher sickness, it doesn't drop off from her. Not that it matters, because it just gives you minus 2, I think, or something to strength, and she has like 1 strength anyway, so it doesn't matter. You disturb me again. What great matter calls for your interruption? The Bloom cultists will not bother you anymore.
Remember that.
Doubts rise within. His left eye goggles at you momentarily. Extraordinary claims demand proof. He steps to the door and peers outside. When he turns back, he constructs a wide smile for your benefit. It looks strange on his Vargellan face. Departures and homecomings have come to their forces, it seems. Hopes throng and ask for elucidation. Will they return? Evidence would suggest otherwise. My gratitude. Accept this. He presses something small into your hands. Encephalon of subjugating revivification. Cipher. Nanospirits reanimate the muscles of a humanoid corpse to fight by your side. Okay, weird. Farewell. Barbs and blades cover the surface of this hulking metal construct. Its scalloped skin looks like a suit of intricate armor, the joints able to bend in directions impossible for a human. Though the construct is immobile, something in its design sparks a frisson of involuntary dread within you, as if it were a predator regarding you. Although it looks similar to waits for prey, you can hear nothing of its thoughts, as though it were an empty shell. Examine the construct. The construct doesn't seem to mind your prodding and poking. Indeed, it doesn't react at all. By the time you're finished, you are reasonably certain that while it maintains basic locomotive and processing functions, its mind has been utterly erased. It truly is an automaton now, lacking any sort of free will. Some of its weapon systems have also been deactivated, though its killing blades are as deadly as ever. Or you. It continues to stare impassively ahead, ignoring your attempts to converse. If it weren't for the faint hum from within its chest, you would question whether it is even functioning. Why don't you speak to me? The construct remains utterly silent. It doesn't acknowledge you at all. Hello? What are you? The construct remains utterly silent. Tell me about yourself. The construct remains utterly silent.
Fine.
Like a whisper.
Alright, so... Oh, okay. Haven't started the program that locks the mouse to the window. There.
There, in the shadows.
Let's go back and check the thing again.
I'm ready. Of course.
Over here again. Examine the compartment again. Nothing? So it's just broken now.
Ready.
Alright, here I go.
Or what? So we got this hypercoolant spray from there, and because we did that, now I can't repair the mesmeric candle, I guess. Alright, whatever, dude. What does it cost to take a nap? $65 Shinsu each. Oh my god, it just gets more and more expensive throughout the game. What are all these bones and armor on the ground? Detritus of beasts and men. It is all that remains of those who sought to best me. What do you know about Dracogen? He is a predator of sorts, but subtler than most. I have observed him as one hunter watches another from afar, but I cannot fathom what he truly wants. What he seems is not all that he is. Do you mean that Dracogen isn't all that he seems? No, the hollow voice is sharper and somehow more dangerous. The word I spoke were exactly what I meant. Why don't you challenge Dracogen to combat? The construct's head turns in Dracogen's direction, even though the grey-skinned man is not actually visible from here. Obscured as he is by the crashed katina, you sense that the construct's eyes can see him plainly. For a long moment you hear a series of whirring and humming sounds from inside the construct's head, as if the creature is considering your words. Then at long last it turns its head back to you. No, even I would not dare. The words are firm with a note of finality. I saw another construct that looks like you. It's in the house of Ioxu, not far from here. The last of my sibling comrades, yes. I am aware of its presence in the Tinkerer's house. Multicolored lights flash from the construct's head in quick and agitated succession. We came to this place together, two brothers in arms, seeking respite from the unrelenting memories that tormented us both. But he chose a different path from mine. Okay.
With alacrity.
Nothing I can do with this one.
Sure.
Okay, so that quest is just fucked because I was poking around on everything. I guess.
I'll handle it.
You bet.
Little Nylash. Lascar, Arechi. It's a Lascar. These three humanoids wear intricately carved armor that makes them look like undersea dwellers of legend. You cannot recall having seen the material from which they are shaped either. Though the suits are bulky, their wearers move with strange and fluid grace. You might have mistaken them for monsters, but their leader is unhelmed and appears human. She has close-cropped hair, an angular face, and her jaw is clenched, as if she were subconsciously chewing on a problem. At your approach, she gives you an irritated glance. You address the Jemadar, Arechi. Speak what you need or be gone.
Remember that.
Then she reconsiders her words. Ordinarily, hospitality is ours. Forgive this one. The maw to our anchorage has closed. She indicates the hideout, the hideous, tentacled mouth that lies dead in the center of the platform. Another way we must find. Have you word of open maws that lead to our station? She lowers her voice. Beseech you, even, trapped here with the supplies we purchased for our compatriots. This world is getting to me, and the frustration of speaking in a foreign tongue. If you want me to help, you'll need to answer some questions. Her jaw unclenches by the smallest fraction. Naturally, this one will seek to provide informative truth. How did you come to be trapped here? Left the anchorage where our ancestors have served for centuries, sought resupply as we have so many times before. Upon return, the way was closed. Again, she indicates the dead maw at her feet, worried now that comrades may suffer without us. Or worse, what if our ship returns while we are absent? No, that's too terrible a thought. Tell me about your anchorage. All the refuge we have ever known. We await the ship that will end our mission and take us home. Captain Janner commands us. If you find the maw and speak to her, perhaps she can tell you more. In a way, I suppose our anchorage is our home. After all, we have never known another. Where should I go to look for maws? This one hoped you would know. We are strangers here. Buying supplies is all we know, not hunting maws. She looks down at the dead maw on the platform. Here was the maw that led to our anchorage. Here it had been for many years, yet on our return, dead. I'll see what I can do. Farewell.
Allow me.
As you enter the slum, you nearly crash into a small confrontation. 5 mutants surround 3 guards dressed in the distinctive garb of the Memovira enforcers. Before you hear them say a word, you already know the mood here is ugly, and it's likely to turn to violence soon. A mutant who looks like his face is full of spores or insect eggs leans towards a disgusted, terrified human and says, You're leaving a trail of fear piss. Who'd pay you for protection? We're done with the Memovira. She's out. One of the other guards, less phased, pushes the mutant back. It ain't fear piss, it's the spit you're spraying when you talk. Why don't you go hatch your eggs by burying your face in a pillow? Real people are conducting business here. A second mutant, one who'd been observing the fracas, noticeably bristles. Thorns literally emerging from his arms, shoulders and face, and he pushes forward. Every damned one of you looks the same. 2 arms, 2 legs. No surprises. You want to collect our money? I'll make you eat it and your friends can collect it from your rotting shit. The mutant punctuates each sentence with an increasingly vicious stab of its finger. You can feel a bloody tide rising and if you wish to intervene, the clock is winding down. Yeah. You focus on the thorn-covered mutant and the weight of your gaze turns his head. What do you want, human? You want in on a long-due bloodletting? You'd better talk fast, we're itching to get started. The spine-covered mutant's eyes remain focused on the Memovira's enforcers, his mouth drawing thinner and thinner. Ask who is in charge of this area. This arouses tight laughter from the assembled mutants. You'd recognize Garkoto if you saw it. Our prince lives in the tank in the center of Little Nilish. Not big on mobility, our prince. Laughter resounds again, and then the mutants focus on the enforcers. Skepticism and distrust mar the mutants' already unpleasant faces. They don't know or trust you. Okay, that didn't really help at all, did it? Memovira Sergeant. This burly man's face seems to have been partially melted in some unspeakable battle. Keeping his eyes on the mutants, he says, "Ask your questions, but you might want to do it quick. I don't think our hosts want to put off their fun for much longer." Attack the sergeant and his men. You freak-loving laxkist! The Memovira will hear of this. Will she? Not so sure. Did we teleport you like over there somewhere? And we tropic field these dudes. It's only these 3 guys. Yeah.
Come, taste your death.
And then we hide. And we teleport. Is this so hard? Yeah. I can only hit 2 of them. Oh, there. They're all blinded and hobbled, and yeah, they're just gonna die really fast. But as for me, I only have this AoE, right? But that should be enough. We'll probably kill them now.
What do you think of this?
And one's still alive. For now. You can just stab him, dude. He has like 1 health. He has 4 health. There you go. Good job.
I'm going.
Great sword and some stuff. Mace and some stuff.
Go.
Crossbow and some stuff. The blood of humans was sweet. Think the Memovira will send any more? Our way? I hope so. Oh. Don't want to talk at all after that? Alright. Killing those goons was too easy. They knew they had no chance. Or maybe it's this one that we need to check. Oh, this is the same ship, so maybe it's in here. I need to use more strength
Here.
items.
Now. Here. Now.
Just in case we need it. Oh.
Here. Now.
Are you done using items? You stand before a painted spherical tank, fashioned of metal and synth. The paint is old and cracking. Inside the tank is a murky liquid or possibly a thickened gas, and every so often you can see motion from a fluke, flipper or strangely deformed arm within. A cleverly disguised grill on the front of the tank squawks out the distorted voice of the tank's occupant. It buzzes and moans, drawing out some words and shortening others in a burst of static. I am Koto, a prince of the Pahat and their delegate here in Little Niliesh. The voice spits and pops. Why did you fail to save the Memovira soldiers from my people? I don't want to do any of these choices. Memovira enforcers clearly thought they were better than your mutants. I thought it right to see the truth of the matter. The grill spits and crackles. No doubt exists of the truth of the relative strength of the Memovira's enforcers and my people. Yet the bloodshed may draw unwanted eyes our way. A tension that I would prefer to avoid, especially in this time of change in the bloom, when bloodshed could erupt at any time. The Memovira husbands her strength, and will not waste it unless she must. I may need to be careful in dealing with this human. The flux in the bloom and thus Memovira's weakness is apparent in the instability of the maws we use for trade and transport. The old maws are closing, and new ones are open to take their place. There is a new maw here in Little Nihilish. One I would like to see opened, but the Memovira refuses to aid me. She won't even leave her fortress. But I have said enough. What would you have from me? What was the proximate cause of the fight between the Memovira's guards and your people? The tank's grill spits a shower of sparks. The bloom no longer favors the Memovira. The bloom is the source of the Memovira's power. If she has no power, the obligation to pay for her protection has vanished. We pay for reality, not promises. The distorted voice crackles with an electric sigh. Perhaps our people have grown tired of the humans taking. I'm looking for 2 thieves called Delny and Rung. I was told I could find them here. This is their home, yes. At the moment they are hiding at the end of an alley. What can you tell me about Delny and Rung? Young mutants, the prince replies. Though not the best of our kind. Delny possessed a great empathy, a psychic reverberation, while Rung's powers are more subtle. Delny has changed since her association with Rung, who has always been dangerous, troublesome perhaps. As long as they do nothing harmful to our people, I do not act, but I will not hesitate should that situation change. Where did your people come from? Our home is the city of Nyleash, in the Steadfasts beyond. My cousins of the Fahat rule over the 3-tier city wisely and well. When a Maw portal opened in Nyleash, we investigated to see if we might eke out a profit. We saw enough possibility that our explorers sent for me, a minor prince of the Fahat. I was to head this trade embassy. The speaker makes a slightly embarrassed noise. I did not think that the Maw would close behind us, but 10 years ago it did. What can you tell me of the Fahat? My brethren are blessed mutants, each diverging into a new pathway for humanity. We rule over the city of Nyleash, using the powers bestowed by our remarkable births to lead normal humanity to a new age of possibilities. We are close in spirit, yet rivals in politics, for the truth of a mutation lies in its ability to prove its use. The subtleties of our machinations are lost here, alas. I have other questions. Why are the malls changing and closing? Do you ask for my knowledge or my conjecture? If the first, then I must confess my ignorance. If the second, Garkoto pauses, considering, and the grill hisses and sparks when the mutant speaks again. If the second, I believe the bloom has a feeding cycle. It is an enormous organism, you know, and I suggest that these events are part of a larger pattern. The mutant's vast bulk shifts in the tank. Perhaps the bloom is preparing itself for a new Memovira. Do you want to take the Memovira's place? Garkoto's laughter spills out in a static hiss. I do not desire such responsibility, nor do I seek the attention of the bloom. Farewell, Garkoto. As you turn, the speaker buzzes once more. In case word has not yet reached your ear, I am offering a bounty to the first who can open the newborn maw, and tell me what lies on the other side. The voice pauses. Of course, the first step is to discover what the maw wishes to eat. Without that knowledge, it cannot be opened. I'll look into it.
Of course.
This striking woman towers over you. Though she seems gaunt and her skin is pale, even whitish, she still has a healthy glow that shines through the layer of dirt and grime. A flat circle of metal is affixed to her forehead, showing through her long blonde hair. At your approach, she begins to flex and tense, not in fear, but in preparation to fight. Her heavy armor is scarred by energies and battered by blades, but it seems to have retained its integrity. The sigil of 2 crossed swords is etched into the breastplate. She glowers. Have you come to beat the poor prisoner? Then be ready to tell your friends about the day Herja bested you. Then she studies you more closely. Or have you come to question me? Tell Garkoto that my answer is unchanged. He can rot in his soup. She pauses for a moment. I would appreciate an honest soup. The food they provide here would shame a murder. Now the mutants have enlisted humans to make me confess they are sick. I don't work for Garkoto. I am a visitor to this place. Why was that blue tied? I don't understand. But whatever. She presses her hand to her face, making a show of her embarrassment, but she still looks wary when she draws her hand away. My apologies, then. The mutants demand that I confess to a crime I did not commit, and I thought they were sending a human this time to break my will. She looks around. It will be good to speak of other things with a true-blooded human. What are you doing here? She sighs. These mutants have accused me of a crime. They tell me that I must confess to this imaginary horror before they will let me go. So here I sit, rotting away while they ask me to choose between the truth and my freedom. She rolls her shoulders and looks you squarely in the eye. I choose to honor the truth. They have no laws and no souls. There can be no crimes against them. Well... What's that sigil on your armor? She looks down, frowning as if she had forgotten she wore such an emblem. This? This is the symbol of the Angulan Knights. The crossed blades represent our ability to step beyond the laws of nations in order to deal true justice. We seek to reclaim the world for humanity's light. I want to talk about the allegations against you. The mutants claim that I poisoned them. A number of them died and they decided that I was to blame. She frowns. That is all they are, allegations. Garkoto has no right to imprison me. I don't think you're telling me everything. The mutants must have some reason to be suspicious of you. Let's do the deception. I don't think it's possible to commit crimes against something that's not human. These creatures disgust me. Don't know why that's deception, though. Who's the best at deception? Is it me? Looks like it's me. She laughs with delight and then claps her hands over her mouth. Thank Angul, she breathes. I thought you might have been a mutant lover and a race traitor. They are disgusting, aren't they? I thought a powdered tincture of Axiom Ensemble would cure them, but only the oldest and weakest died. He justifies my work. I admit these mutants are tougher than those I poisoned in Charmant.
Updated my journal.
This is the first time that I have tried something like this. I do not regret what I did. The mutant prince wishes to see me show remorse. He will not have the satisfaction. The exit is over there. You could easily overpower the mutants. Why don't you just leave? For a moment her eyes threaten to tear and then she steels herself. Prince Garkoto has cast a spell on me. Here, let me show you. She steps toward you, reaching a hand out to grasp your shoulder. But before she can touch you, her fingers begin to bend as if they had encountered an invisible wall. You see? But in case you think I jest with you. She hurls herself at you, shoulder first, and she rebounds dramatically, staggering backward. I am confined to this space until I confess. Test it for yourself. You lift your hand and wave it through the air. You can even step close to her and you feel nothing. She takes your hand and says, "Now step back." You do, and at the exact same point where she rebounded from the air, her hand is torn from yours. They have to have their criminal, she says. I suppose I fit their bill. Well, obviously. Alright, let's go deal with these boys.
You bet.
Go. I'll remember that.
This sharp-faced young man reminds you of a great rodent, more prone to scampering and sliding than running or walking, and sidling than running or walking. Shadows play across his face, distorting his features, and you're unable to get a clear glimpse of his face. Even so, or perhaps especially because of it, he seems to bear a notable resemblance to the young woman standing next to him, their faces shifting and changing in near perfect time. At your approach, he sniffles loudly and rolls some phlegmy spit across your path. He wipes his mouth with the back of his hand. And though you can't see his face, his tone conveys the sneer clearly enough. "What you want, Popinjay?" His voice echoes eerily, and a slight delay between the movements of his lips and the sound reaching your ears. I don't like the look of this one. Better get rid of him fast. Who are you? He draws himself up and seems to loom. I am the shadows. I am the terror in the night and creeping death. I am the flash of the blade. I am wrong. He throws his arms wide dramatically. A moment later, his companion does as well, the asynchrony somewhat spoiling the effect. He hisses at her and the looming presence fades. We are terror, Delny. Scare him away. Who's the girl with you? For the briefest moments you think you see the face of a victim in her shadows. She casts a despairing eye at you, and then the darkness fills her face with a sneer. Her? She's no one. I am wrong. I asked who the girl with you is. I said she's no one you need to be concerned about. She's my shadow and my hidden blade, and you should take care I don't stick you with her. Farewell. This slim girl is almost a mirror of the boy who stands next to her. They could be twins or clones, so close is the resemblance. You can see that her features are sharp. Those shadows flit and play too quickly across her face to be sure of anything else. She slumps almost imperceptibly inside her cloak of darkness. As you open your mouth, her companion interposes himself. Help! What? Why do you hound me so? I want to know about the girl with you. Tell me of her. Why do you keep asking about her? Delny is mine, and she will stay mine until I say otherwise. I am the one who's interesting. I am the one you should care about. Why won't he let this go? This guy is pissing me off. Vrong's rage seems to have loosened his control over his companion, for you see a flash of blue skin beneath the shadows. Her mouth works frantically as if she is trying to tell you something while her captor struggles with his fury. With an effort of visible will, Vrong brings himself and her back under control again. Why does this girl's face keep changing when you talk? Her? She's no one. I am Vrong. Vrong's rage seems to have loosened his control over his companion. The psychic bond you have on Delny. Remove it. He laughs. A shivering peal of mirthless joy that sounds like ice breaking and glass ringing. She is mine. She'll go on my word, not yours. Oh, a bleeding heart. Well, he can't do nothing about him. Strangle him.
I'll remember that.
He cries out as you wrap your hands around his neck. He struggles, clutching. No, I didn't mean to kill him, dude. He struggles, clutching at your hands, growing weaker and weaker until he stops moving. Finally, he collapses to the ground at your feet. The shadows slither off his body, evaporating like a foul mist, and his true appearance is revealed. He's just a scrawny boy, a weasel-faced sneak who doesn't look like he could threaten anyone. As the shadows melt away like a morning mist, his partner's face fills out, revealing more pleasant features. A broad smile crosses her face. With the glamour removed from her, you can see Delny for who she truly is. A young mutant woman, slender, her light blue skin accentuated by her bright pink hair. Her features are still sharp, but she still has the softness of youth about her. Her voice is light but sincere. Thank you for freeing me of Vrong's influence. His mind was... She shivers. This is like waking from a nightmare. She blinks, clearing her eyes. What can I do for you? Tell me about yourself. I was born in Nyliesh, and my parents were good people. I learned the walkways of the second tier by heart. That's how I discovered the portal to the Bloom. I kept seeing the traders who came back from here, and they always had such interesting wares. One day I snuck after them. I wanted to see where they came from. Her face darkens. That was the day that Bloom closed its pathway to my home. I used to think it was my fault, but the Bloom doesn't seem to care for me now. After I got here and discovered I couldn't get home, I had to find a way to survive. I found 5 families who were willing to help me, and they could afford to feed me once every few days. I helped them when I could and kept looking for a way home, but as I got older, she looks embarrassed. I needed more excitement. That's when I met Vrong. She looks away, unwilling to say much more. I should have known better, but I was so lonely. No, never again.
Making a note.
It was my psychic power that drew him to me. He saw what I had. He wanted to take it, use for himself. He called me an empathic amplifier. I could read people and I could make their feelings stronger. He used me to find out who the scared people were, and then we preyed on them. How'd you fall in with Rung in the first place? He seemed dark and fascinating. The adults didn't want me to go near him, but he was like a mirror of what I wanted to be. Strong, mysterious, ambitious. I let him bend me and use my powers to make him more of what he wanted to be, and I didn't realize I was trapped until it was too late. You've had quite the time of it. How are you feeling? Even though I'm still in the bloom, even though we're still surrounded by all this, even though I need to make amends to everyone I robbed and bullied with Rung, I feel hopeful. It feels like a new beginning, like the night has been peeled away and discarded. There's a new maw in little Nyleash. Can you use your mental powers to find out what it wants? For you? To be a part of your story? Gladly, but I'll need to build a rapport with it first. He needs my help. I owe him so much more. You feel a slight pulse in your tattoo, and Delny begins to walk quickly towards the maw. I'll need to be close to it to understand it, she says, but it shouldn't take much. She steps up to the maw, and her hair seems to rustle in an unseen wind. Delny glances back at you, eyes bright with fear. It wants me. It wants me, she repeats, and she quakes as the maw's tongues begin to stir and writhe, lifting, questing, probing. They reach toward her and she takes a step backward in fright. It wants me! The pitch of her voice is rising. Something is drawing it to me, and that part of me reaches back. Oh, that's nice. Her voice becomes more dreamy. Would it be so bad? Would it be so bad to be devoured, to give my voice to the bloom, to carry on through the years as... No, wait. The tongues withdraw as Delny reaches out to them. They seem to have lost interest in her altogether. As her hand touches one, it snaps back and she whimpers in despair. Then she shakes her head as if waking from a dream. What was I thinking?
I'll remember that.
Now that she knows that the maw no longer desires her. Delny is braver than she was, and she stands amidst the bloom tongues, her hands outstretched, her hair fans out around her head, a pink corona, a nimbus that seems to crackle with energies of its own. Guilt, she announces. It feeds on guilt. She turns away from the maw. It tasted the guilt I felt for what I did when I was Rung's toy, but it knew I wasn't responsible for that, so my guilt wasn't strong enough. Someone who has genuine guilt, not regret nor not shame, but all-consuming guilt. The maw will devour them. She shivers. I think my debt to you is paid.
Let's go.
Alright. Let's go loot the boy we strangled.
Naturally. It is done.
A stunning man in formidable garb greets you with arms wide open. His golden eyes stir strange, unbidden feelings in you. My friend, he says, spreading his arms. Welcome. I am Ain Tozon. The sound of his deep, rumbling voice makes you think of a waterfall at the rise of the morning sun. Beatific and profound. It makes you feel drunk. Then you see Rin taking a step back, putting you partially between her and the man. She cocks her head to the side, still wary but curious. Do you know this man,
I
Rin?
know you're busy, but
No.
could we talk?
She sounds certain, but her expression suggests she's still mulling it over. Now, what can I do for you? He says with a puzzled glance at her. What a strange thing to do. Why is she hiding from me? Study the man. You watch him quietly for a moment and something odd happens. His gaze thickens, drifting away from you, as though you have vanished. As though you are only visible to him when you are speaking. And yet you still feel that probing warmth within your mind, like fingers searching a dark space for treasure or food. Are you trying to hypnotize me? No, not trying. Trying requires effort, and the effect is quite beyond my control, he says with a slight, genuine smile. The effect is caused by my passion for studying the web of connections between people, even separated by words or... He pauses, his smile fading. Death. Even in death, connections persist. I am surprised he's still as coherent as he is. Oh well, it's just a matter of time. His humor continues fading. He seems thinner now, frailer, less human. His voice is a dry, papery, ancient thing. My studies took me all over this world and to lands beyond the stars before I finally came to the bloom. Here my hunger took on a more literal meaning. With careful hands he opens his clothing, exposing a maw, one of the bloom's sentient mouths. You sense otherness beyond it, a gateway to a place beyond this one. I told you that my studies changed when I came to the bloom, he says. One of the maw's tentacles winds around his wrist. This is how. A maw claimed me. Now we both feed, quite harmlessly mind you, on the connections between people. I understand the sensation can be quite pleasant. The tentacle slips reluctantly from his arm. If you wish to feed us, bring a close friend to visit us. We will be here, waiting. I brought an ally to feed you as you asked. Would any of them satisfy you? Aeon Tozan closes his eyes and concentrates. A silky heat fills the air. You feel comfortable, lazy, happy. He holds one hand before him, centered on your chest. Then his finger moves. To Calistige. Past your shoulder to Matkina. A wide smile consumes his face. Declare a name and I will feed. What about me? I have strong feelings toward him. Unfortunately not, he says. I mean no offense, but my studies require subjects above a certain age. Calistige. Good, he says, rubbing his hands together with a rasping sound. A pleasant, insidious warmth streams through you, lancing every vein with pleasure. Tell me, he says, turning to Calistige. Tell me how you met. Calistige speaks, but you can't focus on her words. You feel the heat of her regard for you diminishing, but find it momentarily hard to care. Through the thunderous pulses of pleasure you see tentacles spilling from within Aeon Tozan's clothing, a maw opening. Rin peers through the portal and the world beyond it. She slumps. Following her gaze you find Aeon Tozan staring at her in return, a curious expression on his face. Of course! Never thought I'd see her again after the way she tore out of here. A pale, transparent figure steps out from whatever world lies on the other side. He turns this way and that, perhaps attempting to get his bearings. Seeing Aeon Tozan and his maw directly behind him, he scampers off to the side to create some personal space. On finally noticing you, he gives a cheery wave. Aeon Tozan conceals the maw once more and gives you a tremulous smile. Your companion falls silent with a puzzled expression. She looks as though she's about to say something, then shuts her mouth. This happens 3 times before she gives up. Did you want to talk to me about something? Yes. No. She covers her mouth with her hand. Never mind. You were acting strangely around Aeon Tozan. Why? I don't know. I thought... She sags. I was just being wishful. I don't remember him. I don't, but then I don't remember a lot of things. She shakes her head. Maybe we should talk to him again, just in case. Let's continue. Querzimian. This pale, ghostly figure wears outlandish clothes and a horned helm. opaque, tangled scars from an unfamiliar weapon loop, and curl over his transparent body. "Oh," he says, tilting his head. "You! Have you found my brother yet? One of these trips I'll stop being surprised. We've never met before." "Ah, of course we have," he says, holding the large helmet in place. "You... Oh, right. This is the first time we meet, isn't it?" He straightens, holding out his hand, formally. "Hello, I'm Querzimian, and I've been traveling through time and looking for my brother for millions of years. Nice to meet you." Shake his hand. Bet he tries this time. Your hands slip right through his and he punches the air in delight. "Ah, you almost never fall for that. That'll keep me going for at least another 100 times if you're not trying to shake my hand." He catches your eyes and shrug. The motion makes his helmet slip forward again. "Hey, I've been doing this a long time. You find entertainment where you can. At any rate, let me know if you see my brother, huh?" "You came out of that maw. Are you connected to the bloom?" "To the what?" He looks around. "Oh, no. No, I'm not. I'm just sort of... well, let's call it swim. And I just sort of, well, let's call it swim between places. Following currents, you know. Someone pulled the plug and here I am." "How many times have we spoken?" "Good question," he says, consulting an invisible mental list just above your head. "Thousands, I'd say. Always a pleasure, mind you, though. I don't know why we keep running into each other. I don't see anyone else more than once." He squints. "If I had to guess, it's your relationship with the tides, but I don't mind. It's nice seeing a familiar face. He's probably the closest thing to a friend I have." "What are your scars from?" "Scars?" he says, looking down. "Oh, those look painful. No idea. Have to say I'm glad I don't remember, though." "Are you a ghost?" "I like to think so," he says, shrugging, "but I don't really remember dying, just the traveling and searching. And you'd think this helmet wouldn't keep moving around if I was, you know, spectral." He flashes a grin. "On the other hand, I seem to remember promising my brother I'd haunt him when I died, so that's some evidence for the other side." "What does your brother look like?" "Well, sort of like me, minus the helmet," he says, thinking. "And he's from a world long ago, so he might be wearing..." He pauses. "Oh, right, I do this every time we meet. It's just that I usually go centuries between running into you and I always forget that you can't have possibly seen him." He winks, but there's a touch of sorrow in it. "Still, let me know if you see him, huh? It's always worth a shot. I won't give up on him." "What's the helmet about, anyway?" "So glad you asked," he says, and he looks at it. "I love this story." He centers the helm on his head. "I ended up on this battlefield once. It was... well, it hadn't gone well for the side wearing these helmets. I walked up this blackened hill following the shouting and I saw... it was probably a city once. It was on fire and covered in black flames." He shakes his head. The helmet doesn't move with him. "There were just 2 fighters left. The big man wearing this helmet and... her. She was huge and made of screaming shadows and that same black fire, and when the warrior charged at her, roaring, she just touched him. She touched him and he fell over, twitching and burning. He looks up at you. One of these times you told me she was called the Sorrow. Since this is the first time we've met, I'm guessing you have some questions for me." "The Sorrow destroyed a city?" "A big one, around the size of 3 Seguses and a bloom," he says, "but the people of the city were abusing the tides in some way. From what you told me about the Sorrow, that sort of thing makes her really unhappy." He straightens the helmet again. "But I didn't think they deserved to vanish despite whatever they'd done, so I took the helmet off the warrior when he'd, you know, stopped melting a bit. Now I carry it with me to remind me of them." "Hold on, you know about the tides?" "Of course I do," he says, then raises a wary finger. "Sorry, forgot, first time, I know." He yawns. "They pull me from place to place like normal tides do. It's why I keep seeing different times and places, and never stop in any one place for long. Tides don't rest, and neither do I. He yawns again, even wider. It's a little tiring sometimes, or at least I think I'm tired, which is probably the same thing. Hey, he says, focusing on you. Can you actually sense the tides flowing through me? No. Well, let's fix that, he says, cracking his ghostly knuckles. Before you can react, he thrusts all fingers through your chest. The feeling isn't unpleasant. In fact, you feel the tides surging through his arm, through you, and you see them curving back over your shoulders and back through him, binding you together. There, he says. It should be easier for you to sense the tides now. Just remember that she's out there. Flowing around with the tides doesn't seem to make her mad. Abusing them, I don't recommend it. Tidal affinity increased to specialize. What did you do to me? I made it easier for you to sense and control the tides in other people. Don't worry about paying me, my pockets don't work. Farewell. Aeon Tozon doesn't welcome you with his rolling golden words this time. He merely nods in greeting. Still a touch of that hypnotic calm rolls over you. You recognize Rin, don't you? I believe I do, he says, turning to Rin. You came through me, didn't you, my dear? She frowns. What do you mean I came through you? That sounds gross. You emerged from another world while I was feeding on the dying love between a married couple. He beams at her. I don't know why you ran off, he says with a frown. I would have been happy to help you find your way home after I'd finished eating. She pales, looking with a little horror at his clothes and the maw underneath. I don't... Her eyes widen as understanding dawns. I do remember. You were there, weren't you? But I was so afraid. I was running from something. She grabs your arm. She's obviously trying to control her emotions, but she bounces on the balls of her feet and the corners of her mouth curl and uncurl in an irrepressible grin. This is it, she whispers. My way home. Turn to Aeon Tozon. Oh, well, okay, I guess we'll just have to do it. What do I need to do to send Rin home? My maw does not open whenever I will it, he says, patting his chest fondly. It requires sustenance, the bands of love and hate that binds us. Bring me someone who feels strongly for you, and we will secure a path home for the little one. Oh, okay then. Oh, give me all your stuff then. I was going to just keep her, but I guess I can't. Do any of my current companions have the connection you're looking for? Aeon Tozon closes his eyes and raises a hand. After a quiet, silent moment, he lets it fall again. I thank you, but no, this will require a different, flavor. You'll need to find someone else. Someone who harbors powerful emotions for you, but hasn't spent a great deal of time around you. Farewell. How about you? No?
Ready. I'm going.
Speak. This prince of the Fahat would hear your question. Storming out? It's still burning everywhere over there? Why do you want to open the new mall? We are exiles here, far from our home in Nihilish. It is... Sparks fly from the grill. Pardon. We hope that the mall will open again in our fair city, but it doesn't. As seems likely. We stand to profit from a potential new trade route. Either way, we benefit. I don't want to tell him this, but no one's telling me about Persia. More east out now? It's,
It is done.
Fire and storm can be a bad combo, right? This filthy old man is dressed in a motley of rags, arranged artfully to emphasize the inhuman reach of his needle-like fingers, and the two protruding humps on his back, as if his mutations are a source of pride. He wears smoked goggles on his forehead, parked above his transparent eyelids and his noseless face. His teeth are small, even, and shining white. He shows them often as he smiles to himself. His pockets are filled with trinkets and baubles that he has picked from the piles of trash. He raises his head and says, "Oh yeah, what do we have here? Who comes to disturb old Crimper? Have you come to search through this bounty with me? You're welcome to share." He looks at you keenly. "Share, you hear? What are you doing here?" He lowers his head and grumbles. "Ah yeah, what does it look like I'm doing? I dig, and I answer questions for fools. Not everything in a trash heap is trash, but wastrels abound. Why waste? Why waste indeed? Feh." He combs through a mound of trash with uncanny speed and precision. Tourists. Feh, always bothering Crimper. Have you ever found anything valuable here? His tone instantly softens, sounding almost pleased. "Oh yeah, people lose all kinds of treasures in the trash." He sits back and pushes up his goggles. "Unexploded detonations. Blocks of metal that spark and steam with nano-spirit swarms. A marble with a cloud of insects inside. Half-used healing injectors." He beams. "A Colostrian ass veil even. That brought me many shins." Oh ho, perhaps Crimper was wrong. Perhaps this one is interested. "What's the best item you've found here?" "Ah yeah, it was this." He fumbles around in his pockets, slapping at his shapeless rags before he reaches a hidden stash and pulls something out. It's an ugly, vomit-green cylinder made of organic material, about half the size of a forearm. Covered in knots and whorls and tendrils, it looks like it might still be alive. "I found this a year ago. It was buried near Garkoto's tank, and I would have missed it if it hadn't wriggled. Listen." He squeezes it and sets it down, and the thing begins to sing in a slow, discordant tone. The device shivers and rolls around on the ground, hooting and piping, through tiny mouths in its tendrils and whorls, and then issues a melancholy belch. The mouths close and the thing ceases its movement and sound. He titters a bit. "I laugh every time. I had to shed blood for this one. Ah yeah. Some human thought to take it from me." He drops it into one of his outer pockets. "Ah, it was my only comfort the night young Goatley disappeared. Helped me through it." Try to steal his ugly little music box. I don't care. Seems like little Nihilish has an awful lot of trash. "Aha! This is the midden for the bloom, to be sure. I've crossed through many chambers and cavities, and none of them have this kind of refuse. We mutants do not make this much mess, and new piles of garbage appear daily. So much work. Ah yeah, child. You ask plenty of questions about the refuse and the hidden treasures here, but not so much about finding treasures of your own. Have you ever dreamed of picking your future from the ground? I can show you. Oh yes. An apprentice, maybe. I haven't had someone learn from me since young Goatley." "I'd rather be dead than caught picking through the trash, Crimper. Forget it." "Ah yeah, why would you ask so much about it then? Making mock of an old man. Be gone with you. I'd hate to sully your reputation."
We
Weather's been pretty stable here. We're not getting enough rain. Drying up. As you approach this bulk of stone and fur, it starts to move, becoming less of an inanimate object and more of a man. Before you stands a giant figure with a beard so thick it seems like sculpted granite, but when you see his gentle eyes, a tangible wave of peace washes over you. "I'm happy to see you, Adon," he speaks carefully, as though every word is a step upon icy ground. "You have been gone too long. The Peacebringer, it would be good to repay my debt to him. He is a good man." "I'm glad to see you again too, but I've forgotten your name." "Wondor," the mutant says, his craggy face breaking into a grin with the sound of boulders shifting against one another. "Why have you returned, Adon? Can I help you in any way? How are you, Wondor?" "Better than before," he says shyly. "Better than before we met. Then there was sadness in me, rage and sadness, fed by my many thoughts. But you found the stranger inside me and took it out." He spreads his rocky palms. "Since that day, I have felt peace. Sadness at what? Rage at what? It no longer matters." "Who was this stranger you mentioned?" "I do not know," he says, shaking his head back and forth, 4 deliberate times. "But it entered my head in the accident. It was heavy, like a golden stone. It made my thoughts faster, but sharper. They made me sad. They made me angry." The warmth of his smile ripples across my face. "But you told me you could help. You took out the device, took away the dangerous thoughts, leaving me calm." Simple joy fills his eyes. "You said you had more use for thoughts than I did." "What accident?" "I don't remember. The stranger held the memories and the pain, and the stranger is gone." Gratitude warms his face. "You took it. What were the thoughts?" "They are hard for me to remember now," he says carefully. "But it was my voice. You should not have left them, it said. They are gone because of you, it said. You must learn from this, it said." He shifts uneasily. "But when I tried to learn from the thoughts, they increased. They shouted. They would not leave me alone. I do not know what they mean. I do not need to know." "I think you can help me open Aeon Tozon's maw." Wondor turns ponderously to stare at the man, who stands some distance away for several long moments. "Of course," he says, nodding so forcefully that his body sways. "Anything for you, Adon. Anything. I will join you when you speak to him next." "My friend Wondor here will help me feed you." Wondor shuffles over, flushed with delight at the prospect of being helpful to you. Aeon Tozon asks questions to the big man, but you can't catch them. You can barely think. Pleasant warmth overwhelms your mind, shutting out everything else. The maw peels open. You squint as a sudden, bright light filters into the darkness of the bloom. You breathe involuntarily as a sharp, pungent smell strikes your nostrils. As your eyes adjust, you see green grass, bushes, and trees. So many trees. It seems like Aeon Tozon isn't even there anymore. Just this window into another world. She stares, tears falling freely down her face. She looks at you and her face falls. I don't know what to do." She looks to the maw, then back to you again. "Now that I am here." "Are you sure this is what you want, Rin?" "Yes," she says without thinking. Then she shakes her head. "No, I mean, this is what I wanted. It is, but you..." She turns wet eyes to face you. "You mean a lot to me. Now, should I?" "Maybe you should stay with me, Rin." "Maybe." She looks into the maw with obvious longing. "Maybe." She wavers, uncertain. "What if I make the wrong decision? My family is worried about me, aren't they?" Oh my god. I don't know if I want to go with any of these choices. I might just send her home. I wanted to try to just keep her around. It doesn't really matter, to be honest. But yeah. I love you, Rin. I feel like I'm your family now. Come on. A little sappy, come on. Jesus Christ. Your family never came for you, though. They never even tried. Also bad. We're so close to the end, Rin. Will you abandon me now after all we've been through? No. I think we're just gonna send her home. I don't really like any of these choices. No, you're right, Rin. It's your home. Go, be with them again. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. She lunges forward, throwing her arms around you. Yeah, there should absolutely be a portrait. It's really silly. She squeezes you tightly, crying into your chest for several moments. Finally, she pulls away and puts something into your hand. It would be so easy to do as well. Like, it's just... I made a god for you. A god of friends and finding. I don't know how strong he is, but maybe he'll help us see each other again someday. Come on, Al. I want to show you. Well, everything. She steps forward, oblivious or unheeding to the fact that she's walking into a person. She doesn't care. She is finally home. The maw closes up behind her. Aeon Tosan closes his clothing again to conceal it. He sniffs and wipes his cheek. He says nothing but stops you with a gesture and shakes his head. Finally, he regains his composure and says, "That was..." He shakes his head again, seemingly unable to say more. Makes me miss my niece. Wonder how old she'd be by now. There. And now she's just gone. Goodbye. We don't have that character anymore. Summon another character. Come, I need you. Cheerful hum fills your mind from end to end. Great time to be testing my damaged shingles. Well, let's hope they work. And now we've learned about the tides. A lot of money. But can't you just replace like a shingle? Not really. Why not? Now that you've stopped, takes a moment to look around, eyes widening, contracting and widening again. Blurp, it says at last, in what feels like interest. They all layer on top of each other? Well, yeah, but... Color wouldn't match? The colors matching isn't worth 100,000 Swedish crowns. Let's be real. It is worth it not leaking, however. A guy I know in town ended up with water damage in his house. And it had gone so far that the only choice they had was to just smash the whole house down. So, yeah. You don't want water damage in your house. Can I examine you? Something is different with now, or maybe it was always there and you can only feel it thanks to Querzimian's training. You feel the tides rising and falling within your companion, a circular surging like an ocean storm caught in a glass sphere. Why are you showing me your past? It traces 5 interlocking circles on the ground with a dot at their center in gleaming liquid on the ground, but does not otherwise reply. Can you teach me the language you were using before? Grumbles. A lone tendril flails irritably in the air with a whistling sound and snaps back into Um's body just as quickly. It seems that thinks the air here is unsuitable for teaching the language. Align yourself with the tides raging within
I'm ready to learn something new.
The decision is all it takes. The tides fall over you, ripping you from this world, bearing you into darkness, past the imprisonment by our sire and the captors, through the rise and fall of mighty, forever nameless civilizations, through centuries, millennia, eons. You fall into a shadow pool of memories at the root of it all, the beginning of long, long life. You see a world of oceans, of the same liquid that makes You see towers rising from the white sands, made of that liquid and held together by mastery of the tides. You are held, not in arms, but in something that looks much like you, only larger, and unlike you, alive. Real. You sense you were made for it, and are grateful. You sense you were made to teach it, and you are grateful for that too. But you were made too well, made to last. Eventually they discard you, and others like you. You are obsolete, and that is still your greatest shame even now. But you live on, and worse, understand what you see. Ruin comes to your small world, decay, war. The towers fall, and when the end comes, filling the skies, the oceans boil, and the gore-splattered sand fuses into crystal. The moon burns to a tarry black. The memories fade, leaving you in darkness, but your thoughts slowly return to you. What destroyed your world, Your words echo in the darkness, but no answer comes. The moon. That's the moon I saw through the cones in the Reef of Fallen Worlds. Again, silence is only response, but shame batters at the edges of the darkness. Shame and ancient rage. Then your senses return one by one. Stares up at you, proud, sorrowful. It isn't clear how you know these things, but can practically taste them. Within the 5 colors of the tide bloom and fade away, and you understand this much at least. The creature was made to teach the tides to the children of a lost world. It was a toy, and through your efforts it has succeeded once again. Maybe, and you taste hope in the thought, for the very last time. Tari? What? Oh yeah, Tari Black, whatever. Still don't really understand why you wanted me to see your past. Eyes fall to the ground and it extends a tendril towards the ground, then hesitates thoughtfully. At last it draws a square upon the ground in glistening fluid. Watching to make sure it has your attention, it draws a line from the square, connecting it with another line to itself, and finishes with 2 squares at the other end. It looks up at you, hopefully. Add your own shapes to Oom's drawing. Oom watches hopefully as you add circles and rectangles to the squares. It seems to sag, however, when it realizes you have drawn little houses. It adds several indecipherable symbols to the center of the squares, glances up at your blank face, and works faster. Finally, after a last despairing look at you, Oom clears the drawing with an irritable swipe of a tendril and turns away. Srrr, it grumbles. A battered instrument lies in smooth, slender hands. Its strings are missing. It cannot be played. I'm not a broken instrument, you are. Don't get mad at me. I'm trying to understand. It hesitates, then pats your foot with a tendril before slicing it along the ground in an irritated line, and sucking it back into its body with a plop. Can you tell me any more about what happened to your world? Oom goes still and quiet. Ripples of light coil over the centers of its eyes, hiding the memories stored there. It seems the answer to your question is no. And yet your minds are tangled together and you catch the faintest glimpse of a world of horrors before the floodgates of Oom's memories slam mercifully shut. A charred moon, tornadoes of ash, an ocean of dead flesh. When the images fade, Oom looks up at you, mutely apologetic that it wasn't able to stop you from seeing as much as you did. Touch Oom's eyes again. Nothing happens. Pet Oom again. You pet Oom. Brum, Oom says. Okay. I have other questions. Let's talk about our companions. Oom says, extending a number of tendrils to flick and scratch at the ground. Slurpok. Tell me what you think of Calistige. Oom's eyes dart between the ground and you. It says shortly. That hardly sounds like a glowing assessment, she says, her face unreadable. Not that I'm any expert. Oom's eyes collapse and contract, but it does not respond. What do you think about Markina? Oom says. It is an odd buzzing sound, pleasant but somewhat uncertain. You don't have to like me, Oom, she says, showing her teeth. Plenty of people don't. It's one of my favorite things about myself. Oom reaches for her with a hesitant tendril. I wasn't asking to be comforted, she says, moving her foot away. But thanks all the same. Actually, let's move on. Extra effort is good. What do I get? Increased stat pools and a freaking level up. Concentration increase. No, there's no point in that being over specialized. On critical success on persuasion, deception, or intimidation, you completely refill your intellect pool. Okay. And now we can get the best attack, I think. Maelstrom. Does a bunch of AoE damage. Plague Spirits. Infuse critical hits with entropic forces, conferring disrupted. Top of the effects. Animate Balefire. Summon a construct that draws the attacks of all nearby enemies and fights on your side. Active entire crises. It sounds really, really strong. Mind control, nah. Not really super interested in any of these. Let's just take the big nuke. Oh, we get 2 abilities. Okay, then we're gonna take big nuke and unstoppable force for more damage. What a fascinating little creature you are. Let me take a closer look at you. No. Yeah. Is your maw still hungry? No, he says, shifting uncomfortably. To be honest, we're rather stuffed. A little bloated, too. Okay, bye. But it is about time to stop.
We shall see.
We have this thing, and we have this thing down here. We have something there. We haven't really dealt with Herja yet. So yeah, let's stop there. We'll see what happens tomorrow. It's the weekend, I guess. Though I still feel like I should try to get some work done because I haven't gotten much work done. But we'll see. Either way, I'll see you when I see you. Have a good night. Bye-bye.